Okay, we're going to spend a bit of time catching up on XLights since we finished the 6 sessions that we went through. So I have 65 lines of things I want to go through. This is not everything that's been in all the releases, but I've tried to cut it down and focus on the things that make a difference. Some of these things I'll just talk about, others I'll actually go and demonstrate. The first one here, we're now including the backups. If you remember, these X backups are created. These are the autosave backups that are created while you're sequencing, and you can control how often they save. I did some sequencing today, and it saved me at least once when XLights crashed. So from now on, as you do log packaging or crash dumps, etc., they're included, and that makes sure that when we're trying to debug your particular problem, we at least have access to the latest possible file before it crashed rather than the last time you saved. So that's the only reason I mentioned that. The test tab, a very small change to the test tab, barely worth talking about, but here I have a controller. And if I put the pause over it, it tells me all the models and model groups that are connected to and are using an individual controller. So if you want a very quick reference to see which models and which groups everything's in, that now works. Not very exciting though. So let's go to the layout panel. For those of you that downloaded 46, you'll know that we got rid of the separate model group and model, and we're now going with a list of the models and a hierarchy where you can expand and have a look at your model groups. Little known is if you click on this column here, it can actually sort it, so you can get your models at the top and push your groups down to the bottom, which can be quite useful. And it's got these nice distinctive coloured icons here, which makes them a little easier to tell what each thing is. If you want to add groups, you still right click to add a group. Nothing's changed there. If you want to edit a group, you click on it and you can change everything down here. It now highlights in yellow everything that happens to be in that group. All's not quite all, as you can see. Otherwise, to be honest, it's quite similar to how it was before. Polyline model. So Polyline model's been in for a couple of releases now. It's this icon up here. None of these icons are very easy to see, but this icon up here. This lets you draw a model which is made up of straight lines and multiple of them. So you click once and drag. You don't have to hold the mouse down at this point. When you're ready to drop the next point, you click again, click again, click again, click again. When you're done dropping the model, you press the escape key and it stops drawing, and you now have a multi-line model. It spreads the 50 nodes in this case, because this over here it says there's 50 nodes, so it spreads them over it. Of course, you can change the number of nodes and it will make them more dense. You can also define individual segments. So I can say this segment at the bottom only has 20 nodes in it, whereas segment 2 has, I don't know, 100 nodes. Segment 3, I don't know, let's say it just has 3 nodes. And you can see that it's now spread those nodes out. This is important because particularly if you're using this to trace the outline of your house, and some areas of your house go back in the distance, you might on your picture have a relatively short distance, but lots and lots of pixels, and so you will want to spread them out using the individual segments. That's probably the main part of that. The other cool thing that you can do is once you've selected a segment, as I've selected this segment here, you can right click on it and define a curve. And when you've defined a curve, you can grab these red points. Oops, sorry. Okay, sorry, you can grab the red points and drag them out. I just didn't grab the right point, and that lets you create a curve in your polyline model. So if you've got an arch or something that you're going around on the house and you've got a string of lights and you bend it around, instead of having to use an arch model, you can just use a polyline model, go around it, and so on. This will also be easy for sequencing effects that chase along the string. So that's pretty cool. Scaling them, you can see the blue boxes up here. Once you've done it, you can actually scale the whole model just like it's a regular model. You can also export it. So it's not just custom models now that you can export polyline models. And then click on the import, draw a small area down here, choose that polyline model, and it brings it in. This is interesting. This has happened to me before. I'm going to have to talk to Gil about this. It's happened to me once before where it's done that. Anyway. So yeah, so you can import and export them. Not only that, in this release, if you happen to have defined, and we'll come to these in a minute, submodels, or if your custom model happens to have a face, etc. definition, all of those things are now included in the XModel file. So if someone shares you an XModel file of something like this singing bulb, and you wire it up all the same way, then all of the face definitions and everything else will be in the same XModel file, so you don't have to go and redefine them all yourself. It could save you an enormous amount of time. Gil was demonstrating a star that he built using this polyline model, because one of the things I didn't tell you is that, see this segment here that we said was 3 long? You can actually also validly say there are actually no lights on that segment, and you can create a string that's actually discontinuous in display. And he did that to create his model of his star. And with the resizing, he can now resize it. And if someone else wants to use it, he can export it as an XModel file, and they can use it. And if he's defined any submodels, they can go and reuse those submodels. So it's quite a powerful feature. Definitely, this is a much better way to outline your house than the old way of creating lots of individual lines and then putting them into groups, etc., and then having to go and create a shadow model to represent all of them in a straight line. So you could do chases and the like along it. All of those things are unnecessary now if you use the polyline model. Icicles, a minor change. Probably should have been there from the get-go. In the Icicles model, you can now say whether it starts at the left or the right in terms of where the string starts. So if you're running your Icicles from a central point and you need a different start point, that works. Okay, so then there's the big change in version 46, which is submodels. So submodels lets you go in and take a model, say this star here, and let's say I wanted to create a different model for each point on the star so that I could actually drop effects on individual points of the star differently. So now you have, along with faces and states, you now have submodels. You click on it and open it up. And you get a lovely image over here of it. And what we can do is we can add a, let's call it a range called top. What we can do is we can go up to here. If you are very careful and you mouse over it, it tells you what pixel number it is. So this is pixel 22. This one over here is pixel 30. So I can go over here and say the range 22 to 30. I'm going to call that top. And it nicely highlights them for you to show you which ones you've selected. So that's pretty cool. I can now go up here and say, I don't know, let's create one called top right. Okay, so if that was 20, if that was 30, that must be 31, which it is. And we'll make that one there 41. So 31 to 41. Yep, we got it right. All the right ones are highlighted. That's great. Let's make bottom right. So that's got to be 42 to 50. 42 to 50. So that's got to be 51 to 61, I'm guessing. No, 51. Oh, that's okay. So it's 1 to 11. So bottom left, it's going to be 1 to 11. If you've got discontinuous ranges, so here we're going to go from 12 to 20. Let's call it left. So here we want to do 12 to 20, but I don't know, let's imagine it was 12 to 16 and 17 to 20. Obviously, we could have just written 12 to 20, but if you put a comma in there, you can define continuous ranges and do it like that. You can also define multiple rows, and there are times when defining multiple rows can be useful because of how the rows are then turned into a model on which these things are rendered to. Every row, if you can imagine, you end up with a matrix, and every row represents a line in that matrix. So by adding multiple lines, you can create a matrix representation, which means that some of the morph effects and the like can create interesting representations. But you obviously don't need to. In this case, we've gone and defined those 5 submodels. When we come over and eventually create a sequence, and we go down to our star here, we can, of course, double click on it. And here are all of our submodels. So I can do things like put a color wash on the top. And so the top of my star now shows a color wash, while at the same time in the top right doing a totally different effect. And we'll maybe do a fire effect down there at the bottom. And so forth. So I can actually now sequence the different elements of your model. Now it gets really powerful when you get to something like this. Here it's kind of nice to go and create a submodel to represent let's represent the screw part of the bulb. So this starts at 1 and ends at 26. 1 to 26 is the screw part of the bulb. Actually, we might want this piece along the bottom here. So it's 28. So it's going to be 27 to 28. Oh, it goes up to 28. And then 67. 65 to 67. 65 to 67. So there's the screw on the bulb, and then we can add the bulb itself, which is going to be 29. I doubt it's 29 to 64. Sounds like too many, doesn't it? Oh no, it is. There you go. So you can just define that as your submodels, and then when you come time to sequence your bulb, where's that bulb gone? Where's that bulb? Bulb. Oh, there it is. So yeah, so we can go and put, I don't know, a nice brass-like colour, yellow, as close as I've got to a brass-like colour on the bottom. We can put, and then we can say, oh, we want the bulb itself to be green. Okay, and then of course you could also, at the same time, put your faces effect on it. I haven't defined. And it would of course show you the face as well. So you could control all elements of the bulb that way. So yeah, that's submodels. Very powerful, gets very out of hand very quickly if you're not careful. When you save a custom model, like this, if I was to export it, yeah, we'll save that and import it again. So bring in a new one. Okay, so there he is. And if I was to go in submodels, they're all there, which is exactly what you'd expect. So if someone shares the bulb with you and they've already gone to the trouble of defining all the submodels, they will all come across to your show and save you having to redo all of that work. The same if you define faces, which of course I have. Yeah, so the face definition also came across, which saves a whole bunch of setup work for someone who's defining their new faces. Add model preview to face. Okay, so yeah, I didn't show that. But one of the things that we've done now is added the face definition in here. So as you're going through and defining the different mouth forms, etc., it actually shows you which ones you've chosen to use. No more having to jump backwards and forwards to check which pixels are which in your definition. And just like it in the other one, it's a little fiddly, but if you can land your mouse on top of it, you can also work out which pixel is which. This saves an enormous amount of time when setting up your face models. It really is a lifesaver. And I've done a similar thing with the states model. So here I've defined some states, and again, those states are set up and you can see them in here, so that when you're setting your states up, like when I was setting up my Tune to sign, I can go in there and see which pixels I've chosen. Again, saves an enormous amount of time on setup. While we're at it with states, one of the things I did with the states model was I did this 7-segment display stuff. I'm not going to go and hunt out my 7-segment model because I'm not sure where it is. Actually, that's not true. I do know where it is. Yeah. Let's go and bring it in. Desktop. Okay, so there's my model, my Tune to sign, and if I go in and define the states on him, you can see how there's all these states here, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. They're all necessary because it enables me to put numbers and do automatic clock countdowns and things like that. And so part of that is done by using these special state names, and you've got to use exactly the right state names. But to make it easier, I've now created this little dialog box here where you can go in and say, oh, add me the states for this digit here. And it will go and add in the states which don't exist for that digit. So 1000 already existed, so it didn't bother to add that. And it started at 0 then and added all of the others until it ran out of room. So if you were defining one of these and you wanted to use the countdown and the timer type settings on the states model, it's now a lot easier to go and define these without having to remember which ones to put in. At least that's why I did it. Okay, so this was a request that someone made. So if you're here and you're looking at the model data for this bulb, and you're building your bulb and you've got your coro there and you're punching your bulbs through, you have to keep, because you punched the bulbs in from the back, you have to keep thinking about the fact that this is looking at the front of the model, not the rear of the model. And so when it shows up a bulb here on the left, when you're punching it through, you actually have to punch it through on the right. And if you get it wrong, all your bulbs are wrong and you have to go back and redo it all again. So now you just click on rear view and it reverses it for you. And now what you're looking at here is the rear view of the bulbs, and so you can follow these bulbs directly. But even better, there's a wiring view. And so what this does is this takes the This shows you a representation showing exactly how this bulb is meant to be wired up. It's also the reverse view, so it's showing you the back end of the model with each of the bulbs numbered and showing you how they're joined up. And if there's any discontinuities, if there's any pixels that don't follow one another, it won't join them. This also works for single string or dumb string type models like this one here. As a wiring view. Obviously, these don't have, because they're not pixels, it doesn't bother joining them together, but it does show you all the bulbs which are string 6, all the bulbs which are string 3, and it also color codes them for you as well. I think it does about 8 colors before it starts reusing them. So it shows you which string should be attached to which when you're building your models. So hopefully that makes it a little easier to build your custom models and get it right and get it consistent with XLights. There is an enhancement coming in 47, which I've already built. You'll be able to right-click on the model and export it, and it will take this image, turn it into a full screen size image file and save it for you, and then you can go and print it out or do whatever you want to do with it. Just in case it's a little bit difficult to use it on the screen at the same time. You want to take it out to the shed and you don't want to take your laptop out there. All right, models export. So this is old. We've seen the models export before. All right, there it is. Okay, so it creates this CSV file which happens to contain all your models. There's been a few fixes and corrections in here. The channel count, this now is correct if the channels aren't continuous. We had some users that weren't just running a contiguous set of channels to their things. They'd sort of use the custom start channels and therefore had holes in their channel counts, and we were calculating the number of channels incorrectly. So that's been fixed. And I think I added an extra column. I can't remember which column it was. There was something that Sean was using in a spreadsheet. I figured I could put it in here. It was the node count or the channels per node or something. So there's a few little changes there. Nothing really material. Channel formats. Yes. So, so as you know, the start channels for various things are all well and good, but sometimes you want to be able to, sometimes, I don't know about you, but I tend to use lots of little controllers. And so rather than working with a large address space or a large list of channels, I like to be able to say, actually, this is attached to Universe 3 and it's on channel 1. And so this format here goes away and will work out Universe 3 channel 1 is 1021. And so I no longer have to maintain a spreadsheet and keep trying to remember which one it is. And if I was to go to the setup screen and reorder this or something, that would all automatically update the channel numbers over here and still work. There's another format we added. I'll put it in, and that's you can put in an IP address. Actually, we'll put 1.2 colon a universe number and a start channel. This is only useful if you happen to use the same universe number on multiple different controllers and you use unicast. A particular user was doing that. They had multiple controllers, but they used the same universes on every controller, and then they unicast the packets to those controllers, and they wanted to be able to do it this way. So what the hell? It works. Look, to be honest, I find this is a really convenient way to do it. I tend to do this for the first model that happens to be attached to a controller, and then I tend to use this one here, which says after this model, then this particular item exists and within a controller. And I find that minimises the amount of editing I need to do on start channels from year to year.